let's call this work session to order. We have funding for engineering services on redundant water lines. Joe?
Yeah, I was going to turn the floor over to BJ Wilson. He's got a proposal on the engineering for the
the door. We have to open the door.
door dispute.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, BJ.
Okay. So basically, as mentioned, CHA recommends that we go ahead and send out the for engineering on the redundant water line at a cost of approximately $1.3 million is what it's estimated to be. My recommendation is to use the fund balance for the water fund to pay for this rather than going out to bond and paying additional interest. Just wanted to see if council was on board with that, or if I should start seeking funding from loans and getting quotes.
I'm sorry, how much was it?
Approximately 1.3 million is what it's estimated for CHA. We won't know the actual figure until we get it back for doing an RFP.
And what was that for? One more time.
The redundant engineering on the redundant water line.
The engineering.
Yeah.
Okay. How much money is it we set aside year to date?
For
Two.
for the redundant water line.
Yes.
Approximately. I want to say it was 200,000 or 400,000 total. I don't know off the top of my head. I apologize. But my recommendation is use it out of fund balance and set that aside for the debt service we're going to incur, like CHA presented to us.
Follow their plan.
Yes, follow their plan. And engineering would be separate.
Any thoughts from council? Makes sense to me. Put on the regular meeting?
No, we don't need to do anything at this point. I just needed to find out if I needed to start seeking loans.
We're in the process of putting together the RFP for the engineering, so we were wanting, before we got it out on the street, we wanted to know what council's intent was for funding that.
Yeah,
We
so if
don't
I need,
know. We got an estimate of 1.3, but it could come in less.
Okay, good.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Easy item. Okay, next we have future EDA structure for the town. We had, that's Jake, I'll let you turn it off. You have a reform committee meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, reform committee meeting tomorrow where we agreed to at least give some sort of direction of where town council is leaning rather with their desires to either partner stronger with the county, make a recommendation for an alternative structure for the EDA. If we're interested in doing an EDA ourselves and not doing it jointly with the county, basically just being able to disclose a little bit more the intent of this council. And I think I shared last time that nothing is finalized from the Board of Supervisors. Let's look around and see if there's a Board of Supervisor member in here. Nothing's finalized from the Board of Supervisors. However, there's discussions about the EDA is now more closely than ever integrated with the county. There's discussions of whether or not it would make sense for the EDA just to be a department of the county, and it seems like that might be a direction that that the board is entertaining. So it seems like that they have a little bit of a direction that they're moving towards, and we need to decide where the town wants to be in that picture. Additionally, if town wants to have a split with the EDA like we had before, are we interested in splitting that cost, having a bit of a cost sharing element back with the EDA again, which I believe was 70-something, 20-something last time. That's the synopsis of our discussions.
Gary?
72.
Yeah, I've said this already. I worry about now. I've been very outspoken about getting back into the EDA, but my worry is I do not want to assume any of the debt that they've incurred. I think that would be foolish of council. So at this point, my vote is we set up a separate IDA and work and concentrate. I'm not saying we're not going to talk back and forth with the EDA, on certain issues, but at this point, I believe that would be the way to go, Jake.
I'm sorry, to clarify as well, I did say this last time. So in my head, there's a couple scenarios to this. As of today, I think Councilman Gillespie's point is spot on. We don't want to incur the debt, so that's a concern. But what if this is 2 years from now where all this is fleshed out and we know where each party stands? Would that change things? So 2 years from now, we know the debt's taken care of, whatever. Would we decide to do it differently? I think is also what we need to get.
How do I say this to you? I think the town, I do not want to see the town be the second fiddle. I mean, I truly believe that when it comes to the town, we're put off on things, and I worry about that, Jake.
I agree with
Wholeheartedly.
Gary. I know when we were doing the partial funding, it was still the same way, and I think you were there too, Gene. We were always second fiddle. I mean, it was always us last, county first, and I would rather see us going our own separate way. I don't want to, be liable for any debt that they have incurred. But yeah, I'm all for us going our own separate way, staying far away from them as possible.
Yeah, Gene?
Well, I don't know, I'm not ready to make a decision either way at this point, but I agree that we don't want to incur any debt. But I do believe if we even consider this, we need to spend a lot of time sitting down and discussing and finding out where we're headed, because we make too many decisions on the spur of the moment. And most of the time, that's what the lady said out there, we make wrong decisions. And I'm not in favor of making any decision at this point. I think we need to ride it out a while and then come back and maybe decide on what we plan on doing later.
Okay. Any other sentiment? So it sounds like Gary's position is generally would like to see the town pursue the possibility of forming its own IDA. Gene, just keep things a status quo for right now. Bill?
I remind you, even with the mismanagement and the embezzlement, police department, the building beside the town hall, the EDA is supposedly managing a lot of town projects. And, I've sat on this council for 3 years now, and I've heard you talk about we don't want redundancy. If you already got it covered, why do the same thing over? And I do understand, because I sat on that board, I do understand that, because I've been feeling this way, that the town is taking second fiddle to a lot of things. And I said in the open meeting very vocally that I wanted to know where the pecking order comes from, where we stand on our projects. It always seems like somebody from the county is pushing whatever their agenda is, and ours is not heard. And it could be because we've withdrawn rather than being proactive in it. So my point is, I would say we need to be proactive into the EDA and whatever goes forward.
I think that we need to have our own and do everything separately, because right now we don't even know if this is going to be cleared up in 5 and 10 years. If we're completely 100% honest, like we do not know if this mess is going to be cleaned up by then. So we need to make sure that we're having our interests represented. We're managing our own projects. It makes no sense for them to do it, because right now look how far out we are with the police headquarters and how that's getting repaid and all of those things. So it's in our best interest to have our own, at least for now. Maybe revisit in a couple of years when it is all cleared up, but right now, no.
So I tend to agree with everyone. How about that?
And I know what you're saying, and I agree with Gene,
Yeah.
because we can take our time and make sure we do it right.
That's right.
We don't have to jump right in and start our own
That's
IDA.
right.
We can take our time, make sure everything's put in place.
So
do right the first
is it reasonable to say that the council's position is that we do not want to be engaged with the EDA during our civil suit,
Right.
right? That's one reason not to be engaged right now
Right.
because of the civil suit. And that we're pursuing our own options as far as what future economic development in the town of Front Royal looks like. And maybe if council concurs, maybe we can invite our legislators, Joe, to a future meeting and have a discussion with them as it relates to the possibility of legislation to get the town authorized to form its own IDA. Now, that is not uncommon. And George, I don't know if Doug shared any of that with you.
No, I don't think he did.
Okay. Doug, before he left, said there's many jurisdictions. Let me back up. As I understand the code only requires counties to form IDAs, and maybe cities might allow cities. But there are many towns that have had exemptions to the code, and towns are authorized to form IDAs. Now, again, like Gene, I have no idea what that would look like, but it may be worthwhile to have a conversation with the legislator and see, do we want to do it this year? Do we want to do it next year? But I think I think that's a good, happy medium, middle ground. Is that? I mean, because I'm here to tell you, I had a conversation with a EDA member. I had a meeting actually with an EDA member. The EDA is insolvent. Okay, and with the amount of debt that it has, the assets, when you compare the assets, the fair market value doesn't even match up to the amount of debt that it has, which means very soon the county is going to start be paying their monthly obligations.
They're going to raise taxes on us.
And it's we're going to pay for it one way or the other as town citizens. And I just, I think that it's going to get worse before it gets better. I believe I think there's still issues to come out. I think right now, I just don't see us, the EDA can't dissolve until its assets, in other words, even the possibility of dissolving EDA, it's not a possibility today. It really isn't, because they have assets and they have debt that they're not allowed to dissolve until the debt is settled in their Chapter 9 probably situation. So I think our ground is that we're pursuing our own options, and we've decided not to get re-engaged. Now, nothing says you can form your own IDA in 3 years or 2 years and do it for a year or two, and once everything clears up and the county clears up and there's a new council and a new board of supervisors, a new EDA, who knows what the future. But I think right now, I think it wouldn't be prudent to. Is that council's sentiment, Joe or Jake?
Yeah, the only thought I had, I do like the idea of having seats at the table with the EDA. Let's just remember that our involvement with the EDA is what brought everything to light to begin with. I mean, the questions that the town was asking, the pressure that the town put on it, the litigation that the town went through with the EDA, that's what brought this all to light to begin with. It was the town drilling down on it. So if we didn't have any kind of relationship with them, then this could have been continuing. And so there is that part of it that I know we've done it through the loans and we haven't had a seat at the table, but there is that part of it where I like having a town representative involved with the board of the EDA, which they do. They have a couple people on the board now that live within the town limits and everything, but I don't know if there's a way to structure it with those kind of stipulations or not. Even if we are doing our own thing, I feel like if there was an opportunity for the town to weigh in on how we think that should be structured, now's the time, even if we are separating ourselves from that, if that makes sense as well.
The sad part is that they're spending probably 90% of their time just on past sins. I mean, they're not spending a lot of their time on economic development right now, because they're trying to figure out, unwind everything. So, Jim?
Going back to what you just said, why can't we ask them? Say, hey, why can't we have a representation of it? We're part of the county. Why can't we have somebody on the board that represents Front Royal?
Sure.
Whether we're a member of it or not, as far as a voting member, why can't we have somebody there?
Sure.
Yeah, I imagine the next question is going to be, sure, you get, exactly.
Yeah. We're 50% of the county.
Yep.
It's like we ought to have some vote somewhere.
Yep.
They looked at that way.
So I think that if that is a recommendation, then that would bubble up through the supervisors, council, EDA joint meeting. I think that's where that's going to come to a head, because I can't speak on behalf of all of you guys that way, and nor would Archie do it for the board.
Yes, I think right now you're still gathering information and processing it as far as what's best And that's, you're gonna report to the joint committee. Will you be prepared for a draft report on 22nd, you think, or be pretty tough?
We'll see after this next meeting.
Okay.
See after this next meeting. I mean, I think we've drilled down on the solvency issue. I don't know if Councilman Gillespie agrees with me, but I think that really bubbled up at the last meeting. Mr. Daly commented to that effect. So I think that's one good thing that's come out of it. I think you just kind of summarized the bankruptcy issue. I mean, they have too many things that need to be liquidated or assets that need to be changed before they could actually ever do that to begin with, not including the bonds. So I think we're kind of closer on that front. And so then it really comes down to, well, what is the future of the EDA with the town and county partnership on that? And I think that's what we're discussing now as well. So I think those are some of the big hitters that we've kind of got out of the way. And now we just need to kind of, and there's some studies that went into that as well that would be shared as part of the final report with it. So I think we need to get a few of those things nailed down, and then we'll be closer to a report.
Great. Thank you.
So my next steps then, based on what you just summarized, Mayor Tiedrick, is we're not gonna partner or have any kind of particular partnership with the county, as we're currently engaged in a civil suit with the EDA until that all flushes out.
Is that
Yeah.
the will? Does that seem reasonable? Okay. I think that's the first position,
And the second position would be that during this time, we're going to continue to investigate options of establishing potentially our own EDA.
I think that's reasonable.
Nothing permanent. I think it's a reasonable ask to say, where's the town leaning with this? Because if we're leaning, we want to do something jointly. Well, then maybe the county wants to pump the brakes and look at how that structure looks at today with us. But if we're not, then
Well, to Gene's point, would it be advantageous to have a non-voting member as part of the EDA currently,
I personally would like that.
even if it's a non-voting
No,
member?
it could be it could be a member of the council, or it could be some local citizen.
Why don't you, do
Float that?
councils think that's a reasonable thing to ask? Yeah,
Well,
float
you
it.
already got, what, 2 town citizens on the EDA board.
Sure.
I mean,
I think we ought to
you
have,
represent the regional board, you know, why couldn't we have a councilman?
Still don't like the
sit in?
selection process. But
That's it. If we could see the resumes when they're seeing the resumes and everybody weigh in on who's applying and how they get into that position, I think is more important than saying, you live in town, let's put you there.
yeah, good luck. I hear ya.
It's gonna be show us the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very.
I need to remind council that we've got a dilapidated building. Ordinance has never been funded. And it always boils down to the dollars on our budget. So, you know, respectfully, I heard what you said, you want to go independently, but you're talking some big bucks and some big budget dollars that's got to be appropriated. We always seem to put at the cart, but the most important piece is the appropriations. Whether it's unrestricted funds or whatever, you put that out there first, then you put the cart together. That's my comment.
Yeah.
And we've been fighting for years now between the county and town. We didn't want redundancy in anything that we do, but we still do it. Town goes its way and county goes the
Sure.
other.
Joe, have you had meetings with our legislators before, from a council perspective? What's the process?
No, we can call, I guess the biggest challenge will be getting all three of them at the table at one time. But we've done numerous meetings in the past with Deeper and whoever else. I mean, it's not.
Collins has come a couple times.
Yeah,
too.
so it's
Would a
not.
conference call, would you guys be amenable to a conference call during the work session? That way they wouldn't have to come in, we could just ask some general questions about.
We can set that up. I was hoping that Doug would be able to weigh in on the avenues for the local IDA, and I don't know how far he got in his
Research, yeah.
on that yet, but yeah.
Well, maybe we'll bring this up at a later meeting then, before we ask them.
Yeah,
I
my
mean, I don't want to ask them
recommendation would be-
prematurely.
right.
Let's wait for Doug.
But, wait for Doug, but my thought is that if you wanted to change anything in the legislature, they proposed the bills in January, so You know, it would be this time between now and December to get something on the docket, or at least something to be able to be proposed if there were any changes.
Okay. Jake, you good? Good. Council good? Okay, next on the agenda is open discussion. Any other items need to come before council? Do we have anything?
Do you want to ask council to confirm on the October 15th at the town hall for that Tuesday?
Thank you. Yes, I knew there was something. October 15th, we have Board of Supervisors will be in these chambers at the same time of our meeting. So I've been informed that in the past, we have held the meeting in the town chambers in Town Hall, where our work sessions are held. Or if you feel necessary, we could use the community center. But Joe and I went in today with Jennifer, and the three of us think just having it there will be just sufficient.
Yes.
Now there is a public hearing scheduled for that day.
It's a small item.
It's a small item on the franchise agreement, so it's minor. I wouldn't expect anybody to speak against it or for it.
Tap fees public hearing is not on that agenda, right?
Actually, yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
It will be. So you may want to. I forgot all about that. So you may want to reconsider location with the amount of speakers tonight, I would suspect.
Okay. What's the
Are
pleasure?
you referring to?
Columbus Day is that 14th. Or
Columbus
like
What?
the 14th
Always
is
celebrate
that Monday. So our meeting is moved to the 15th, and it just happens to be the third Tuesday for supervisors. It's a once every other year thing that lines up. And it's this year. And the week before that is
BML.
BML, so there is not a meeting that week.
Are we sure we can get that meeting room down there?
Not sure.
We don't know.
Yeah, I have to
They
check.
are booked up quickly.
Yeah.
So we may have to be at the town hall, but we will check. I'll email Robin.
Okay, so your first desire would be have it at the community center, and then the backup would be the town chambers.
Now, we saying
Yeah.
saying the community center, or you want, talking about the one in the old library?
Yeah, and at the Warren County Community Center. And then what's called
Sometimes they call it the old.
the old Sanders Library.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody good with that? Okay. Joe, we have to go in executive session, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So. Well, Miss Bonnie. All right, who's got the motion for executive session?
I got it. Mr. Mayor, I move the town council convene and go into closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to the actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body pursuant to section 2.2-3711.A.7 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion properly made by Mr. Gillespie and seconded by Mr. T-Wall to go into closed session regarding EDA matters. Any discussion? You roll call, Ms. Berry, or you have to have
We
it?
don't have to.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're not going to have anything to announce, so staff can go and